All right, Larry Krueger here from the Pig and a Pickle Krueger Show with a little 49er draft recap. Well, the Niners took Jake Moody, the kicker from Michigan, with their second pick in the third round. Interesting selection. Obviously the Michigan kicker, 6'1", 209 pounds. He's a Michigan guy from Northville, Michigan. He was a senior. He signed with them without a scholarship. He had a strong high school career. He recorded 4 of the 7 longest field goals in the history in the state history of Michigan. He had a 58-yarder in high school, and he wound up going to Michigan. So he goes to Michigan and he has a good career there. He was an AP All-American. He was the Big Ten Conference Kicker of the Year. He was a second-team All-American and the Big Ten's top kicker this last year. He converted all 60 extra points. He had an FBS best 29 field goals, 29 out of 35, so 82.9%, 3 of 7 from 50 yards plus, and scored a school record for points, 147 points, which ranks second this year in all of FBS. So that mark bested Desmond Howard's 138 points that he scored way back in his amazing 1991 Heisman Trophy winning season. So Moody also set the career record with 355 career points at Michigan. He was the team's kickoff specialist throughout his career, kicking 222 touchbacks on 393 attempts. So 56.5% of his kickoffs went for touchbacks. He only had 2 seasons as the full-time Michigan kicker, but he was outstanding with Michigan. Very reliable on kicks shorter than 40 yards, but not necessarily the most consistent from some of the longer distances. Very capable on kickoffs, hits the ball pretty consistently on kickoffs, kicks it through the back of the end zone. Did kick, went 8 for 8 on field goals in tight wins over Nebraska in 2021 as well as Illinois in 2022. He was 4 for 4 kicking in the playoffs, where you see the most pressure. So, this is a guy who they hope takes over for Robbie Gould. What was Robbie Gould good at? Stepping up with big kicks under pressure. So, the one thing that a lot of people like about him is he's got good hang time on his kickoffs. He knocked down a 59-yard field goal against TCU in the national semifinal, which got a lot of people's attention. So he only made 66% of his kicks from 40-plus yards over the last 2 seasons, and he does have a tendency to pull some kicks occasionally from the right hash. But overall, what you're looking at is a kicker who is the highest-rated kicker in the draft. The 49ers are looking to replace a key cog. They were moving on from Robbie Gould. Robbie Gould wanted to move on. They wanted to move on. I don't think they wanted to pay Robbie Gould big money. They brought in Zane Gonzalez, and I don't know what this pick will do to the Gonzalez signing, but I would imagine that Moody will wind up beating out Gonzalez. You don't draft a quarterback 99th overall in the third round of the draft unless you're expecting him to be on your team. So there's always going to be a risk because kicking in the NFL is a different deal than kicking in college football. So there's always going to be some transition period going from the college game to the pro game. But what you're getting here is you're getting a blue chip kicker. You're getting the best kicker in the draft, and you're getting him at the end of the third round, which to me seems a little bit early. But the 49ers felt like they needed a starter and felt like they needed a starting kicker, and they decided to go with Moody here at pick number 99. So he appeared in 14 games this last year with Michigan, and he was the team's place kicker and kickoff specialist. So he had a good year. He was all Big Ten selection, first team all Big Ten. He was a Lou Groza Award finalist. He won the Lou Groza Award the year before in 2021. And this year he was named Specialist of the Year. So, the 49ers are getting, the best player at his position in this draft. They're getting a guy who, who's by far considered the number 1 kicker that was available this year. So that right there, it's been 20 years since Michigan had a kicker selected in the NFL draft. But They think he is a ball striking sensation. He's a he's been described as a special team wonder. He converted 92% of his field goal attempts last year and made every extra point. So he did win that Lou Groza Award. He had a magic season the year prior, and then this year got off to a little bit of a shaky start, but really finished strong. So he finished his final college career by nailing all 60 of his extra points and compiling an 82.9 completion percentage on field goals. And the 59-yarder that he hit was beaten only by Stanford's Joshua Carty, who kicked a longer one. Moody did convert less than 50% of his 50-yard field goals this year, but he's shown throughout his career, both in college and even dating back to high school, that he has leg strength, and he's got a clutch gene to come up big when the game's on the line. The thing that I always look at is, how do coaches deal with their kickers? How do they, do they put them in positions where the game's on the line? Do they trust them with the game on the line? The one thing, if you watch Michigan football, Jim Harbaugh trusts this kid. There's no question. The way he coached it up, you could see that he really, really trusted Jake Moody to come through. So a lot of people, I've seen him compared to Jason Sanders, who's been a very good veteran kicker. But you're talking about a big-time kicker and an accurate kicker. There are bigger leg kickers. He's not. There are guys that, Chad Ryland from Maryland, I think, has a bigger leg, but his accuracy has been really strong, and he's made a lot of big kicks in big situations. Now, as I said, there's kickers that have bigger, more monster legs that can kick from further and more consistently. And he only has had 2 years of full-time kicking experience. So there's a little bit of kind of like what are they getting? Well, we're not really sure what they're getting. But, there's always going to be a transition to the NFL. And what will it look like? What will it look like? How long will it take him to transition to the NFL? I don't know. But I will say this. They're getting a really, really solid kicker. They're getting a kicker that now, Zane Gonzalez was definitely not as good as Robbie Gould. And so the idea of moving on to Zane Gonzalez from Robbie Gould was a little scary, especially when you think of the 49ers. They expect to be a playoff team. They expect to contend for a Super Bowl. So there's always that concern of, how will this guy transition? And at least in this situation, they're getting the best kicker in the draft. They're getting the best kicker, the guy who had the highest rating. He was the 4th Michigan player off the board this weekend, but just a really, really solid player all the way through. And, that's what I really like about the kick. I know there's a lot of people that would be like, they took a kicker. And to me, it is a little bit early for a kicker. He's the highest drafted kicker since Florida State's Roberto Aguayo was drafted in 2015. And that did not particularly go all that well. But he was a 5-year kicker at Michigan, even though only the last 2 years was he full time. But 2021, he was the best kicker in all of college football. He went 23 of 25 on field goal attempts and made converted a program record 56 PATs and delivered 98 kickoffs through the back of the end zone. So he was the Shrine Bowl MVP. So that's another thing. I mean, to me, that's a great one. That put an exclamation point on how reliable he's been. I mean, if you say what's the greatest thing you can say about any kicker, I think the best thing you can say is he's consistent and he's reliable. And this guy's nickname is Money, Jake Money Moody, because he's incredibly calm under pressure. And he put an exclamation point on his college career by being named the MVP of the Shrine Bowl back in February, where he hit 4 field goals and the West team won 12-3. He single-handedly accounted for all of his team's points. So, it's funny. When he showed up at Michigan, he had to compete right away with a high-profile prospect, Quinn Nordine. Nordine handled most of the field goal attempts. Moody was responsible for the kickoffs back then. Then Moody took over the job and all the subsequent kicking duties for good in 2021. And it's funny. What I also love about him is that I love the fact that he's confident. When he went to the combine in March, he told all the media people that he was worth using a draft pick on. He said, it's hard to come by a kicker worth getting drafted, but I think I possess all the tools needed for that. If it were up to me, I would draft myself. So, I mean, that I like. And the fact that his nickname is Money, I like that as well. So, what did the Niners get with Jake Moody? Jake Money Moody. Hopefully they got their next kicker for the next 10 to 15 years. Who knows? Maybe he'll wind up being the next Sebastian Janikowski. Normally, I don't like kickers in the third round, but I love the consistency, and I love the fact that this guy is considered to be not just a good kicker with strong leg, but a clutch kicker. I'll take the clutch kicker every day over the strong leg kicker. Strong leg is nice, but give me the guy who's clutch. Give me the guy who went 4 for 4 in the college football playoffs. I'll take that guy every day of the week and take my chances. All right, hope you enjoyed the 49er draft video. Thanks for supporting the Krueger Show on YouTube. And check out Pig in a Pickle. They're in Emeryville and Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week in Marin, and they're open Wednesday through Sunday in Emeryville. And thanks for supporting the Krueger Show on YouTube.